Studio work tends to require many pairs of hands to handle the workload from the various areas of production in an adequate and timely fashion. This is why it's important to designate roles and establish an effective chain of communication where everyone can work together without the need for anyone to step out of their comfort zone. So roles in the studio, what are they? Well, you've got cameraman, multiple cameramen, floor manager, director, producer, vision mixer, audio engineer during production, audio engineer during post-production, lighting technicians, runners, warning don't run with coffee, makeup artists, colorists. If you're filming stunts, you'll need a stunt coordinator. Each one of these people will most likely have at least one assistant, but you get the point. The list goes on, and it really depends just how big the production is. I'm merely going to be focusing on the key elements that apply to nearly every studio production, and the way in which they relate to each other. Our production team averaged maybe 8 or 9 people. Everyone wanted to test the water, roles kind of overlapped, and many of us had to go the extra mile to ensure that productions ran smoothly. Hopefully the experience proves to be useful in this discussion, so without further ado, let's get right into it. You can't have a television studio production without camera operators. And what's their responsibility? Well, ideally, before any filming is done, they need to familiarise themselves with both the camera script and the set plan and be able to discuss with the director what style they'll be shooting in. They also need to decide what kind of gear they'll be using, and whether cameras will be on tripods, handheld, or even mounted on a dolly or crane, in which case all relevant technical staff must be informed. A test run will also ensure that all your gear is working properly and won't complicate things later on. Once they've done all that and they feel confident, they can configure the metadata for the convenience of the editor, maybe if there's time go over the script once more, and stand by.
Hello? Hello? How the fuck are you? Now today, I'm going to show you how to do a job interview so you don't just get the job, you fucking smash its head in. Wish me luck. G'day, how the fuck are you? How the fuck are you? Huh?
Hi, Mr. E. Take a seat.
All right, it's going well so far, but they've just offered me a seat, right? But I'm trying to come across as, bloody assertive. And if I sit down, I'm going to seem lazy. Fuck your seat.
Okay. We've had a chance to review your resume, and there's a few things we'd like to clear up.
All right, the important thing with resumes is honesty is bloody paramount, all right? They don't want to see some bullshit on there like, oh, I was in the bloody homosexual debating team at fucking school or whatever, right? What they want to know is, if push comes to shove, you're the right man to stab this job in the showers and leave it twitching and bleeding in a pile of its own shit, all right? So check this shit out.
Under your list of achievements, you have street fighting champion and standover man with 18 unofficial kills.
That's right, 18 of the fuckers didn't do time for any of them.
Yes, and we do appreciate that. What would you say your weaknesses are?
Nannish tarts. What, they're yummy. What, they're fucking yummy.
What do you think you'd bring to the job?
Oh, well, 22 automatic, Colt 45 Eagle, stick of gel ignite, 410 shotgun, another stick of gel ignite, meat cleaver.
No, I mean, what of your good qualities could you offer to the role of Chief Human Resources Manager?
Oh, well, I'm a people person.
The live stream of camera footage will be sent to the gallery, which houses the vision mixer and audio engineer. The vision mixer operates a board, which is also called a vision mixer, that decides which camera will act as the video source at a given time. They may also cut to video inserts, such as a pre-recorded field report. Although vision mixing is mainly about deciding when to make cuts, the vision mixer may also be responsible for color grading and chroma keying for a live situation. They may also use different visual transitions, such as a crossfade, which has its applications in live music sessions or dance recitals. We'll get into the role of the audio engineer later on. The vision mixer we've been using at university is a Panasonic AV-HS450. None of our productions so far have been that demanding on the vision mixing side of things, so without much practice we were still able to get the functionality we required out of it. As I mentioned earlier, communication is key to making these types of productions work, and typically communication between the floor and the gallery occurs through a talkback system. Each camera operator will be equipped with a headset and microphone to listen and respond to commands from the gallery. These may be requesting particular shots or camera movements. The other key crew member to communicate via talkback to the gallery is the floor manager, whose main role is relaying information from the gallery, particularly from the director, to those not wired up to the talkback. They are also to make sure that each and every department is prepared for the broadcast, but also that guests are looked after and in a safe environment, audio members are kept updated, and issues that occur on the floor are hastily dealt with. When all of these are satisfied, the floor is happy, which means the broadcast can begin. Communication from the gallery will continue throughout the broadcast, by which point the floor manager must rely on a system of hand signals to convey messages to talents on camera. These messages include standby, speed up, OK, and 15 seconds left. Audio. The key thing to mention here before I go into anything else is sound format. The widely accepted standard is stereo. Nearly all television shows are recorded, mixed and edited in stereo and broadcast as such. I'll acknowledge the exceptions. Doctor Who makes use of 5.1 surround sound. Both BBC and Channel 4 show films in 5.1. Some of the content on Sky HD is 5.1, but as a general rule, something would need to be a big deal to have a live surround sound feed. We're talking Super Bowl, Wimbledon, BBC Proms, FIFA World Cup, those type of things. In order to capture sound in a studio environment, you're going to need to decide which type of microphones to use and how many. But hey, a mic's a mic, right? Wrong. The common variables between different microphones are their frequency response and directionality. In other words, hearing me talk through a studio mic will sound different to me talking on a telephone. Or if I was to mic my phone speakers. Typically, interview format or panel shows would designate a lapel or lavalier mic to each speaker, usually clipped on their collar so it's near the speaker's mouth. They're discreet and most often connected to a pocket-sized wireless transmitter, so the person has the freedom to walk around should they need to. Then there are live music sessions, which are much less hidden in their construction, and this is where you start to see a lot more dynamic microphones, such as the Shure SM58, but also large diaphragm condensers, stereo pair small diaphragm microphones, instrument and vocal preamps, signal chains, the list goes on. Professional musicians are likely to have some of their own gear, so every sound specialist should have a good general knowledge of how to work with various instruments and configurations. I feel it necessary to make a differentiation between a music video and a live music session, both of which are quite different in terms of their setup and application. The main difference is that live music sessions are restricted in terms of geography and timescale, whereas a music video is not. The other main difference is that for live music sessions, the video and audio are captured simultaneously, whereas music videos are filmed on the basis that the track has already been pre-recorded, mixed and mastered in the recording studio, processes which have taken hours and hours to polish, perfecting timing, correcting pitch, and removing any inconsistencies. Here's a comparison. First is the music video for Mumford & Sons' Little Lion Man.
But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I?
Now here they are performing the same song live on David Letterman.
Now learn from your mother, or I'll spend your days biting your own. But it was not your fault but mine, and it was your heart on the line. I really fucked it up this time, didn't I, my dear? But it was not your fault but mine.
Okay, so some music videos adhere to the live music tradition more than others, but it's not always the case. This is the music video for Yellow by Coldplay. Just a slow motion shot of Chris Martin alone walking on the beach. No instrument in sight. Just one of the many examples of experimental music videos. So preparing diegetic sound goes as follows. You locate the sound source, you decide which mics are best for the job, you find the sweet spot for that sound source and position the mics accordingly. The audio signals will be sent to a large audio mixer, typically capable of running up to 64 simultaneous channels, each mic having its own channel. Each channel will have a set of adjustable parameters. These include volume, gain, equalization, and panning. You pre-configure these parameters via a sound check to prevent audio clipping, remove unwanted frequencies, and ensure the multiple channels blend together well in the mix. This process can and probably will be a lot more labor intensive for live music than it would for, say, a face-to-face interview. If a performance from your talent is followed by a face-to-face interview, or vice versa, the nature of the sound you're working with will change, so you may want to consider how you plan on changing microphones. We experienced this when working with musician Big Joe Bone. We used a Shure SM58 on a stand for his vocals, but for the chat we had at the end, we fitted a lapel mic onto the collar of his shirt. Something also worth considering is that when it comes to a live music session in front of a studio audience, the configuration for the live sound may not necessarily be the same as the configurations for the mix intended to be heard through the stereo speakers on a television. Before the show reaches television screens, there may also be some non-diegetic sound or foley added. For example, sitcoms and comedy sketch shows may include a laughing track. The purpose of the laughing track is actually something that follows the tradition of ancient theatre in Greece, in which a coordinated group of persons known as the claque were placed among a theatre's public audience and were paid by venues, actors, and even emperors to cheer and support, laugh, sob, or demand encore when appropriate. It was their job to try influence other audience members to react in the same way. A notable continuation of this tradition was in 18th through 19th century France, where claqueurs had a prominent presence in French theatre and were even subcategorized into commissaires, rieurs, châtelleurs, pleasureurs, and bicheurs, all of which differed by which emotions and body language they exercised. In the modern era, the claque is much more restricted, although studio audiences are still often cued to applaud or cheer through the use of signs or placards. So, why am I telling you this? Well, without diving too deeply into the psychology of it, it's worth noting that even up until this point, nearly all forms of performance art were experienced communally, and the group would be expected to behave in a unified manner rather than separate or alienate people. The arrival of radio and television contained audiences even further, right down to their living rooms, which meant that for the most part, the experience of being part of a large viewership was no longer apparent. Using sound from a live studio audience in a television or radio program was a way of still being able to offer viewers a theatre experience whilst at home. But what about if your actors do the bit and the audience just doesn't give you the response you wanted? Or if it's a single cam production involving long shoots that just can't accommodate a live audience? Enter laughing tracks, also referred to as canned laughter. What this does is offer editors a range of pre-recorded laughter samples, from short sniggers to prolonged contagious laughter from men, women, children, which can then be mixed together with the video and ultimately allow you to fabricate your own audience response. Whether this is ethical or not is a different subject. However, what often happens is sound mixers take the genuine laughter of a live studio audience and combine it with pre-recorded canned laughter. This arrangement is what a sound mixer would call a sweetened laughing track. And it does make a difference. Just to demonstrate, here's a commutation test, for lack of a better term. First we have what crime drama Breaking Bad would sound like with studio audience laughter.
Hello?
Walt, are you in the house?
Yeah, it's me.
What the hell are you doing in there?
You're back.
No, you're not back. Walt, you're not back. Get...
It's essentially changed the interpretation of the show completely, by encouraging laughter toward what would otherwise be quite a tense moment. You think that's weird? This is what US sitcom The Big Bang Theory would sound like without studio audience
We need to
laughter.
start entertaining the possibility that the shaming could go on for years.
Well, if that's the case, Penny will have to get satellite TV and maybe once a week run a vacuum through this place.
I thought you were gonna...
Has it suddenly become awkward? Is it a testament to the true bland nature of American sitcoms? You can judge for yourself. Set design. Set design is no specialty of mine, but what I can say is that for shows like sitcoms and soap operas, wall panels are arranged in a way that, assisted with well-composed shots, will give the illusion of a perfectly convincing room interior. In cases involving multiple interiors, the fictional geography is compressed within the television studio. In this example of BBC's Mrs. Brown's Boys, Agnes breaks the fourth wall and reveals to the television viewers how the interior of her living room and the pub interior are positioned adjacent to each other in the studio. However, cameras are still articulately positioned in relation to the set, so that cuts to different angles make the television viewer feel immersed in the setting. This camera has been directed through a side-facing window in order to capture dialogue between two characters. The design of the set should also help convey the theme of the show, as well as its target audience. See, this is Channel 5's production Milkshake, but how would we best ascertain that this is a kids' television show? Well, for the purpose of being concise, I'll save you a lesson on the Caesarean model of semiotics, as well as the way viewers will interpret signs within a certain context much due to a social and cultural conditioning, and will simply point out the somewhat unorganised display of colourful drawings and cutouts in the background, of recognisable children's television characters, presumably drew by children. It resembles the playroom, it resembles the nursery. We've also seen this kind of thing in the children's ward in hospitals to make them seem like less of a scary place. New sets tend to have a clean-cut and modern aesthetic. However, they tend to be built on a more permanent basis, as opposed to in studio rooms where the use of the space changes day by day. Because of the formal and informative mode of news broadcasting, mise-en-scène isn't a prominent consideration, and nothing on set should divert our attention away from the presenters. Producers and set designers should also consider the construct of the set in relation to an audience, if there is one. Some shows maintain that the audience is heard but not seen. Some shows facilitate for interaction between audience members and talent, despite any distance.
Whereabouts in Fife you from? Kirkcaldy.
Some shows actually incorporate the audience within the set, such as Top Gear with the Aerodrome, so there's a whole bunch of options. Next up is motion graphics. Motion graphics, or MoGraphs for short, are used in practically every type of televisual form, not just in individual productions but also from the networks themselves, which is often to identify its services or promotional purposes through idents. Some shows may use motion graphics as a part of a title or credit sequence, even if the content of the show itself doesn't involve motion graphics in the slightest. Other shows heavily rely on graphics and overlays in order to convey or display information. The best example of this is news programs, which often designate a lower third, side panel or center screen for real-time 3D graphics, animated maps, and data-driven infographics. For these types of shows, networks including BBC, Sky, ITN, CNN, Fox, and CBS all use a program called Visity, which is a graphics tool made specifically for visual effects of this nature. I tend to do a lot of my work on Adobe After Effects, which is a brilliant post-production tool, but doesn't have any live stream functionality whatsoever, hence why it's called, After Effects. So if it's a live broadcast you're doing, you're going to be a lot more limited unless you have an alternative solution. I don't want to give you the misconstrued view that every broadcaster will have some graphic designer in-house, as even many of the major networks still hire freelancers or multimedia agencies to do this kind of work. Live broadcasting. Although we use the term live television to define the coverage of an event as it happens, there's actually a delay of 5 to 10 seconds, which is most often referred to as the 7-second delay. For the most part, it's intentional, and it's useful for removing things like swearing or nudity that may otherwise be unanticipated. A controversial moment in British television was in 1976, when the Sex Pistols used swear words on live TV.
Well, keep going, Chick, keep going. Go on, you've got another 5 seconds. Say something outrageous.
You dirty bastard.
Go on, again.
You dirty fucker.
What a clever boy.
What a fucking rotter.
Well, that's it for tonight.
Nowadays, the main solutions to prevent this type of thing from happening are with a bleep, censor bar, or other methods of distortion. So what happens? Well, all the signals will be sent to the gallery, including a real-time stream and a delayed stream. So if somebody swears, the producer or vision mixer will hear it on the real-time stream and call out dump. Someone will then have approximately 5 seconds to press a designated dump button on the mixing board, which will suppress or obscure the audio and or video channels.
You dirty old man.
Well, keep going, Chick, keep going. Again.
You dirty
Go on, you've got another 5 seconds. Say something outrageous.
You dirty
well, that's it for
bastard.
tonight. Go on, again.
You dirty
What a clever boy.
What a fucking rotter.
Well, that's it for tonight.
It's a good system, but it's not perfect. If the vision mixer is too slow dumping the signal, something like this happens. Well, I've tried to cover as much as I can in the time that I've got, so that's it for this video. I hope I've given an interesting insight to the various elements of a studio production and demonstrated some practical knowledge that would prove useful in a real-life studio situation. I look forward to being involved with some projects in the near future, but for now this is Ben Grantham signing out.